While we focused a lot here on the Democratic candidates' fundraising, it's worth actually taking note of just how much money President Trump has got in the bank.
The Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee combined raised $125.7 million this quarter. The average donation was $44.50. And joining us to discuss President Trump's coffers and his potential challengers is RNC National Spokeswoman Liz Harrington. Great to see you, Liz.
Hey, good to be here.
How should people think about these numbers? How do you think about these numbers?
They're unprecedented. President has never gone into re-election with this much fundraising, this much grassroots support. If you look at what President Obama had raised at this quarter in 2011, it was only $70 million. Oh, wow. This is absolutely, double. Yeah. And if you look at the Democrat candidates, the top five, what we raised in just the last quarter was more than all the top five candidates combined. And this is really being driven by small dollar donations, what you just put up that number. And it really just shows, I mean, after the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi decided to side with Rashida Tlaib and AOC and the Ilhan Omars of the world and go for impeachment, we raised more than what Joe Biden has cash on hand right now, which is $9 million. Yeah. We raised $15 million just in the first couple of days.
That's an interesting thing I want to dig into. Because one of the things I've been trying to stress here is that, you know, everybody wants to paint the Trump campaign as like getting all these Wall Street donors. It's like, no. 98% of these donations are $200 or less. What are some of the issues, other than impeachment, that people are really starting to give on? I know immigration was one. After the president has a rally, that often is what it is. Take us behind the scenes into what drives some of the money.
Yeah, I think immigration's always been a big issue, and I was just out in Dallas for the rally. That's an issue that consistently comes up. The economy, and just getting Washington back to work. And they're very upset. Americans are very upset about the impeachment push. But I would note what's really kind of propelled our fundraising as well is our new platform online for online fundraising called Win Red. Republicans didn't really have a counter to Act Blue. And President Trump, when we were trying to figure out what to call it, he said, well, Democrats act, Republicans win. So we'll call it Win Red. But in the first 3 months, we raised more than Act Blue raised in 3.5 years. So that's really propelled us when it comes to online fundraising, getting us back in the game. And you see the results.
That's very interesting. Well, I know you're going to be heartbroken to learn that the DNC is not doing as well. They only have $8.6 million cash on hand. What do you all have? You have?
Oh, we have $157 million, I think.
Okay, so there's a little bit of an difference. You know, at the same time, you have people like Bernie Sanders and, to a lesser extent, Elizabeth Warren. But let's just talk about Bernie Sanders really focusing on this grassroots fundraising model. He has more donations, individual donations, than anyone, including the president. And he's also committed that if he were the nominee, he wouldn't do big dollar fundraisers for the DNC. He wouldn't allow corporate contributions into the DNC. And when you hear that, how much of an impact do you think that would be? How much of an impact would that be for you all's fundraising if you were to go that route?
Well, the DNC just cannot catch up at this point. We've invested over $300 million into our data operation. We have been consistently on the ground, states we've never left, and we're actually expanding the map as well. We're on the ground right now in 19 states. We're really focused on taking back the House, and of course keeping the Senate and keeping the presidency. So I think regardless of whether Bernie or whoever gets the nominee, if they just cannot catch up to the infrastructure we've built. And it's all goes back into our supporters. We have 30,000 volunteers. They're in the community. They're not paid. They're there because they want to make a difference and they care about this country.
But what do you make, though, of that argument? I mean, Saagar did some commentary this morning on how Mayor Pete has sort of changed his views to match his donors' views more. Obviously, money in politics is a big issue. I would say it's an understated cause of why people voted for President Trump. They thought he's already rich. He's not going to be bought off by these people. He's not going to worry about what they have to say. So what do you make of the underlying argument that it's important to focus exclusively on the grassroots so that you're not bought and paid for by the normal corporate interest or millionaires and billionaires?
Absolutely, and that's what when we talk about our data operation, we talk about our grassroots operation, it's all based on what the voters are telling us. We're meeting voters where they are on issues that matter to them, so we can talk to them about what they care about. So it's really support-driven in a way, because we're talking to issues, we're finding them, seeing what they care about. And I think when you look at this president, especially when you're out there on the ground and you're talking to people, it's very simple why they support him. It's because he's come into office and he's doing the things he said he was going to do.
I really think the media and a lot of these Democratic candidates are sleeping on this, which is the infrastructure that you guys have built out. And it's interesting because it's this time around. I mean, the first time around with the Trump campaign, it wasn't exactly the most professional operation, I'll say. But this time around, I mean, the groundwork has now been laid almost over 2 years. $158 million in the bank. How many field offices you guys have in like all these different states? What is it going to ramp up now that I think the election is really beginning to start? You know, the president's going on these rallies probably once every 2 weeks or so. What is the ground game going to look like changing as the field and the election starts to develop?
I think you've already seen it's starting to change. Look at the president a couple weeks ago in Minnesota.
Right.
That was not in play for us. We only had, I think, one field staffer there in 2016.
Really?
Yeah, and we lost that state by less than 2 points.
40, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that is an opportunity, and we see, and because we do these rallies and we see the data and what it tells us, it allows us to expand the map and find unconventional voters. This is an unconventional president, but in the best way, because he's bringing people off the sidelines who, were tired of politics, who had tuned out, who are sick of people in Washington telling them how to live, shipping their jobs overseas, enriching themselves through their own power. And now President Trump is getting these people excited about politics again because he's delivering for them. So we've expanded the map. You saw the rally in El Paso, allowed us to go to New Mexico because we saw the data was telling us there were less registered Republicans than registered Democrats and independents at that rally. It was 50% Hispanic. There were so many people who are coming off the sidelines who hadn't voted Republican before. And so we're going to get to target these voters in these states.
Yeah, we had presidential campaign spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany on the show after that. She actually told us that the trade issue is what was motivating a lot of Latino voters. These are little tidbits which only you guys would know, but I find absolutely fascinating. What are some other things that you guys have seen within the data that the viewers might find interesting about what is motivating unconventional demographics or audiences to come to the president's message?
Well, I think it might not be unconventional, but different from what the media tells us.
Different from what they
right. Yeah. But an example with that El Paso rally and in New Mexico, the Hispanic support for the president's immigration policies. Yeah. The media and the Democrats think they have this demographic locked up. They think that they all think the same way on these issues, and they don't. Then they live on the border. They realize that most of the Border Patrol agents and ICE agents are Hispanic. Right. They know they're not bad people. They know they're not running concentration camps, and they want a secure border, and they don't want open borders. And so when you look at what the Democrats are pushing and these really radical ideas, I think that really brings in independents, it brings in moderates, because they're saying, wait a minute, the economy's doing really well. I have more money in my paycheck. What are the Democrats talking about? 90% tax rates, open borders, and socialized medicine. It's just unworkable.
And yet you have such a large percentage of the public who say the country's on the wrong track. Even as the economy, unemployment's low, the stock market's done well, GDP growth has been good, all those things, right? All those top line metrics have been positive. And yet you have a majority of Americans saying we're on the wrong track. Why do you think that is?
I think it's dissatisfaction with Washington in general. And I think what we've seen is President Trump, why he's gotten so much support, especially from Republicans, is because he's gone against establishment in Washington. He's gone against the way it works. And I think there's always going to be dissatisfaction. Look at Congress's approval ratings. What are they doing on USMCA? What are they doing to actually advance issues that we care about? But when you look at the underlying data about the economy, people do feel so much better than they did under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. It's just, there's no comparison. And you look, because the policies are working, you have more money in your wallet, your taxes are lower, and you have a better opportunity to get a job. Look at the quit rate. The quit rate is something that you look at month to month for the economy. If the quit rate is high, that means the job market's good. You can quit and get a better job and get higher pay. And that's been historically high, and that's a great sign for the economy.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Very interesting, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Coming up, comedian and host Jimmy Dore doesn't hold back his thoughts about impeachment or anything else.
Really. He exposes some of the bias he sees in the media's 2020 coverage. My conversation with Jimmy next.